positive environment, and the Celebrity Center building and the people that work there would pretty much love upon you and make you feel very safe, as if it was a refuge, a place of safety. And also, not so much the religion, but more the self-help aspect of it appealed to us.
That's interesting. So as you became more involved in it, was there a way in which it sort of actually felt like if this weren't a part of your life, that you would sort of be materially worse off?
Absolutely. That's a great question, because it really didn't take too long for us to get to that mindset. The Celebrity Center has particular techniques and policies that they use, written by Ellen, and all the staff are very focused on how to indoctrinate the new people into the system. And once you get into that, you're not aware of the indoctrination. It's very gradual and it's very light at first. But really what's going on is you become radicalized by Scientology. And you fail to notice that you're gradually and slowly replacing your original values, morals, and belief with those that are embedded into you by the Scientology. So since it's a round-the-clock procedure, you're never really allowed to be gone, other than going to work, going home to sleep. But you have to be there every day. You're noticed if you don't attend the event. So it's like everything about it indoctrinates you into the mindset.
Can you give us an example of a value that you could point to where you held it before you started working your way up through the ranks in Scientology, and how it changed? Like, I think it would be interesting to hear an example of what you mean by that.
Several. Let's talk value of family. When you grow up with, as I did, I grew up in Chicago with a huge family of relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, mom and dad, sisters and brothers, and it was definitely a strong family. We had strong family values where family was to be protected and defended and loved. And when we got into Scientology, the value that really was compromised was that family value of it became okay to start pushing your family and your other friends who are not Scientologists out of your life, because Scientology takes precedence over everything. And the main thing that became important to us was not our career, not our family, and not our outside friends, but Scientology and clearing the planet and Scientology's goals. So those things absolutely did replace our original values and beliefs.
There's this very, and we'll get to it, of course, as when you became part of the Sea Org, but there's this very authoritarian nature to the structure, and I find it interesting that there's this similarity when we talk about how authoritarianism sort of appears in political systems. It doesn't appear overnight. It's starting to attack some of the institutions that are part of democracy, whether it's independent press or the judicial system or whatever the case may be. And if on day one you were told this is where we're eventually going to be, it would seem inconceivable because it would be such a drastic change. Is it true that in these cult-like scenarios, it's a similar dynamic where if on day one they said, listen, in X number of years, here's what you're going to be accepting, you would say, there's no way that I would allow myself to be involved in that. But because it sort of creeps in, your defenses are slowly disarmed?
That is a great way to describe it. Your defenses are gradually, slowly disarmed. Because your mindset, you become so vulnerable to the policies and the teachings of L. Ron Hubbard that you grow to believe that clearing the planet through Scientology takes precedence over everything, over sleeping, over your personal health, over your relationship with your spouse, over friendships and family, like I said. So, but that's part of the radicalization of Scientology. And we went through that at the Celebrity Center, but during the first couple of years of being Scientologists. But it by the time we transitioned the church headquarters, which is the International Management Base, where it was like moving from Earth to Mars in terms of heavy indoctrination, the Sea Org viewpoint, which reigned over everything. That took precedent over your mind. It's like you had to be the Sea Org member to clear the planet, but not only that, you had to support command intention, which is the leader, David Miscavige, issuing orders that compromised with your own sense of logic and rationality, and putting yourself at risk to achieve the goals and to complete his orders so as to please him. And that's where the cult-like behavior just absolutely proves itself, that this organization is a cult versus a church.
You escaped in 1990, and you escaped again in 1993, and then you, after the second escape, stayed another 5 years before leaving for the final time in 1998, if I have the dates correct. Can you talk first about, well, there's so many ways we could go. I mean, maybe you can briefly just tell us why the word escape is so often used. In other words, why is it just not leaving or quitting, first of all? But secondly, what was the sort of catalyst for you saying the first time, I need out, and then ultimately for when you made that decision more permanently? What was it that had changed in your perspective about it that made you say, this can't be for me anymore?
Oh, that's a long answer, but I have actually covered that in my book in depth. But let's talk about escape. Once you're in the Sea Org, particularly at a cultic headquarter like the base was, you can't just leave. You can't say, I changed my mind, sorry, it's time for me to go, I'm going to go rejoin my family. You cannot do that. You do not have your own mobility or autonomy. You can't leave without permission from numerous people. You have to complete a security check or interrogation in order to even get out of the gates of the property. Those are just a couple things. So you can't just say, I've changed my mind, I'm leaving, sorry. You have to escape. You have to take it upon yourself to break out during, when there is, like in my case, I timed my first escape by when I knew there was a very small window when there was no security, or security was less intense, and I was able to drive out of the gates without being apprehended. So that's what I mean by escape. Some people hid in trunks of cars. Some people climbed over fences and tore up their legs on the barbed wire that was atop the chain link fence. And security teams raced after them on motorcycles to capture them and bring them back. So it's truly an escape, and that is no joke. That's not a movie scene. That's reality. In terms of changing my mind, or what was the catalyst that caused me to finally break out? Well, the first time, which was, like you said, 1990, I became intolerant of the physical abuse, the sleep deprivation, being treated like I was a slave. And I just refused to put up with it. And I spoke with my husband about it, but he didn't agree. And I wanted him to leave with me, so I had to escape without him. But I came back because I didn't want our marriage to end. Like you said, I escaped a second time in 1993, came back for the same reason, stayed 5 more years. And when I broke, what had happened is, you pile so many things on a shelf in your mind of things that you're unhappy about or you don't want to tolerate. But you put them aside because you try to, quote unquote, in the words of the Sea Org, make it go right. And you try to toe the line. You need the approval of the powers that be. So you behave in such a way that doesn't get you in trouble. But the conditions became so intolerable to my own personal values and conscience, and my moral compass broke. I realized that I had to get out in order to survive, because I was not going to survive if I stayed. And that, it took me 5 years, the third time, to get to that point where I finally broke. And that is what made me willing to have to go through anything just to get out.
Are people ever irredeemable in the eyes of Scientology? I mean, certainly, you left initially and you were allowed back, and then you left the second time and you were allowed back. And we've talked to Lori Hodgson about this as well, and how she had to go through this process of sort of recanting all of the things that she had said when she had left. Is there ever a point in Scientology where someone is irredeemable, or is there always an opportunity to come back to do the right thing?
Good question. They have a program called the Rehabilitation Project Force, which is basically, in essence, a prison camp. And they tell you that you are irredeemable. You can't be, you can't function along with the rest of the ethical Sea Org members, so you get dumped into the prison camp. And you have to go through 24/7, 365 days a year until you finish. Some people are there for years before they, quote unquote, complete their program. But what that program completion really is you have become so broken and you have become so bottomed out as an individual. You've taken on the mindset of the leadership, and you believe that you're basically scum unless you're a perfect Sea Org member. So you put aside your own personal, again, values, conscience, and this winning personality of a Sea Org member. And that is when you're redeemable. That's when you're allowed to rejoin the group.
Last thing I want to touch on, and we do have pretty limited time left, is how do you recruit celebrities when you are a part of the Celebrity Center? Like, what's the strategy? Are celebrities ever targeted unless you know that they already have an interest, maybe, or have friends that are part of Scientology? How does that process go?
Well, first of all, there's a policy that L. Ron Hubbard wrote about recruiting raw meat, and it's a absolute targeted strategy for people who are currently celebrity Scientologists to list the names of all the people that they know and work with, and they meet with the president of Celebrity Center and they strategize how they're going to get to those people. And I mean, we used to plan, when I was in celebrity recruitment, we used to intentionally send people to certain parties in Hollywood because we knew certain people were going to be there, and we had strategies to invite these people to lunch or go out for a drink or whatever. It's absolutely strategized. How we recruited celebrities, my husband and I at the time were, I was a designer and he was a musician, so we spoke to everybody we knew, from Jeffrey Osborne to Cher to Randy Jackson to loads, Frank Stallone, loads of people, and musicians in Santana. And we did get quite a few people in, but none of them actually stayed, except one.
And who was the one that stayed?
She was the wife of Greg Raleigh, who was a musician in Santana. Her name was Garnett. She stayed for many, many years. But everybody else that we got in, like Frank Stallone, he tried it and left. Michael Carabello from Santana tried it and left. And a lot of
We have been speaking with Karen Pressley, who spent 2 decades as a celebrity recruiter for Scientology. Her memoir is called Escaping Scientology, an insider's true story. Karen, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Intruder! Come in. And now you see nothing more.